So we are at the end of our April workshops, and Elaine Jones is here to tie up our BizDev basics. And she's from the SBDC, Small Business Development Center. And so she is a free resource to small businesses in North Kitsap County. Did I represent that correctly? So any questions that you have from her, you can follow up after this session, or you can make an appointment to see her, and she will sit down with you one-on-one and help you develop a business plan, provide you with resources that she knows about. I'll let her kind of explain. But your home base is in Port Townsend now, but you can still
cover the whole north half of the Olympic Peninsula.
Yeah, and she's been here before and has done some workshops with us before, so we're really grateful to have you back. So thank you very much, Elaine.
Okay, Leslie asked me to do something interactive, and believe me, I'm taking full advantage of that. So I'm hoping to learn as much from this, hopefully, as you do, and to have it be an opportunity to share ideas about how we're doing things. Leslie commented that everybody knows how to do a marketing plan and nobody does one because it's so much work, it seems so out of hand. And a lot of the businesses I deal with, I put them in a couple categories. What I call micro businesses are businesses with 10 employees or fewer. Then there's kind of the 10 to 50 range, and that's almost all our businesses in that 50 employees or fewer range, although the Small Business Administration, one of our major funders, says it's 500 employees or fewer. But typically, if they've got 500 employees, they can afford to hire a consultant. They can do, take a different approach. But I wanted to, even though mostly I'm working with loan packages and financing and that kind of thing now, I'm an old marketing hand. And it really struck me, how many of you have taken a marketing class at some point? Or read about how to do a marketing plan? Yeah, great. It's Leslie's comment that everybody knows what they ought to do. Nobody does it really hit home with me because I see that every day with my clients. So I wanted to address that idea, looking for a feasible approach if you're a very small business. So my interest in this is, as Leslie was saying, I'm a Small Business Development Center advisor, and we provide confidential one-on-one advising for small businesses of all kinds at no cost to the client. Our overall mission is just to contribute to economic vitality, and really I consider us kind of in that niche when somebody isn't ready or isn't big enough to hire a consultant, or maybe can't figure out what consultant they need. A lot of things, we can be that interim person. We're also kind of the interim person between the banker and the loan approval. I get a lot of referrals from bankers of people who come in for a loan and they don't quite know how to put their loan package together, or maybe they have unrealistic expectations about getting a loan. So we can help work through that, help them plan toward qualifying for a loan if they're not ready to do it at the time. So I see a very big range of challenges in the people I see. We work on just, with startups, it's typically, is this feasible? How do we make it feasible? A lot of businesses that either have a specific problem to solve, or maybe they're growing and they need to figure out which of many growth opportunities to take advantage of or how to take advantage of them. But I know that each of you has experience that would be helpful for me to know about, so that's part of my motivation in being here today. And what I'd like to do is kind of start with what is the traditional approach to doing a marketing plan and why doesn't it work? And then it really struck me that the whole lean fad, if I may call it that, I guess it's more than a fad, but all the concepts of lean manufacturing that have gradually seeped their way into every other aspect of business kind of provided a way to think about this and a way to look at it that does make it feasible for smaller businesses. So we're going to look at kind of what are those lean principles and how might they apply. And then I'm going to give an example. We're not allowed to talk about our actual clients, but I've made kind of a composite client that was inspired by somebody who was really on the micro end. And then we can also talk about people who have a little more capacity, let's say, than this guy does. But anyway, we're going to go something. And then I would love for you to be noting down what are the best ideas you've received along these lines. And what have you tried that has or hasn't worked? And you have a sheet to note those things on. So I'm going to be listening as much as talking, I hope. So I thought, okay, the traditional approach, I'm going to go to the American Marketing Association webpage. And of course, they have a page on how to prepare a marketing plan. This is rated 4 stars by the very competent members of the American Marketing Association. I'm just going to go through this quickly. First, you do a situation analysis. You look at the macro environment. They have a whole list I've condensed a little bit here. You know, what's the state of the economy, demographics in general, culture, technology, politics, all these things that are forces on the marketplace. And then the market you plan to be in or are in, kind of what's the structure of the industry, what are the trends, is it a mature, a new, growing or shrinking market? What's the competitive environment, how many companies are there, how big are they, pricing, how are they packaging their products or services, and then what are all the customer segments, how big are they, what is the psychographics of each, what is the buying process for each kind of one. And then you really start on the plan itself, think up some strategies, pick out a couple of target segments, and I'm sure all of you are familiar with the 5 Ps. Think through how you're going to address each of those, and then devise some specific tactics, and have some quantifiable goals, assign some responsibilities, start budgeting. Do you have a headache yet? All these things take quite a bit of time, more time than the small business owner typically has, and more expertise than their employees typically have. But there's more to come. Your plan is not done yet. You need to figure out, how will results be measured, what research will you be doing as you go along, what tools are you going to use. And then typically you need some sort of ROI or something that shows actually what are all the financial implications of this plan, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats analysis, an issues analysis, and then how does all this fit in with the internal trends in the company and the direction the company is going, and how does it fit, and what's the planning cycle, and where is this in the planning cycle. And at this point, everybody's ready to yell uncle. Okay. Okay. Tips are accepted. I'm sure that's what he wanted to put a $100 bill in. Okay. So anyway, this is just overkill and something that no small business has time to do. And so how did that happen? Why did the members of the American Marketing Association say this is a great procedure for planning? Well, they're working in a certain context. It's assuming there's a corporate structure. There's a marketing department full of trained people who know how to do all these steps, right? And it assumes that a big variety of people are going to have to understand it and make the decision, right? It has to go to finance and be approved. It has to go to the head of operations and be approved. Maybe the board has to approve it. Some of those people know a lot about what you're talking about. Some know very little. So that's why you're providing all this context, all this background. That's very time-consuming and difficult to put together. And it really means that only large and stable markets are worth pursuing, because it takes time to go through all those steps and to go through the whole approval process and deal with the corporate structure. And it's assuming that demand and results are knowable. And I'm hoping somebody in here will know the statistic. I looked for the statistics of how many of these major company products that have had this kind of marketing research done actually succeed. And I didn't find any definitive number, but it's basically 1 in 3 succeeds. The best guess I found, 1 in 3 succeeds. A third kind of break even. They don't eat your lunch, but they're not really making any money either. And a third are just plain failures. So all that effort
And what did you get? A good guess, right? And in a corporate environment, change costs a lot of money, takes a lot of effort. And that's why you're going to study it to death before you do it, because it involves changing some things, starting some things, reassigning people typically. Yes, sir.
So do organizations that don't go through that process have a higher success rate or a lower success rate?
I don't know. I don't know whether flipping a coin is equally, you do, I will say, I have done this kind of marketing plan. And I will say, it does give you a sense of security that may be false. But you do know a lot about the marketplace when you've been through all this. And you've had to step back and look at it from 50,000 feet, you know. And there's a place for that, definitely. But I'm going to tell you what the place is for a small business here. Very good question. Oh, yeah, so we know this is not the case, right? For a small business, none of these things are what you're dealing with. So for a micro business, what is it? Well, the practitioner owner already knows a heck of a lot about all those things, or they wouldn't have started a business on their own. If they don't, they need to just go get a job and learn about those things in that market, right? A small niche is not a problem. It's all you can deal with, right? It's desirable. You need something very focused. Markets are shifting rapidly, so you're not expecting a big and stable market. You don't need one, and it's unrealistic to expect one. You're able to adapt quickly because it's you and 5 other people, right? You just decide to do it. And time and money are at a premium. So you can see that the micro business setup is very different from the corporate setup. And as I say, I thought about the whole lean movement that has swept through manufacturing and everything, and I thought, let's look at what lessons maybe we can get from that. There are books called Lean Marketing, etc., and I'm using the term in a more generic sense than that, although I am going to show you a little bit about that. So for Womack and Jones are 2 of the gurus of lean philosophy, and here's kind of a condensation of their key 5 principles. You want to figure out exactly what is the value to the client that you're delivering, and that it's what they want, and focus on that. And then strip away everything that's not actually directly related to providing that value. And the corporate example of this that I love is Curves. What did Curves do? They said, people go to the gym, but a lot of times they're not going to use the showers, they're not going to use the pool, they want to get in and get out and have it be very straightforward and efficient. So they took away all those things, and for much less money, they could provide a workout situation. They've been very successful doing that. They've kind of hit a wall in the last couple of years, but they grew like crazy for years. Then you look at what's creating that value, and you make it so that it's at work all the time, so that you're very quick response. And this is a big one. You're allowing the customer to pull value from you instead of you being out there selling it, right? So this is what's called inbound marketing. We're going to talk about more about that, and certainly social media is one of the keys to that. I mean, that is part of the technology revolution. And then they endorse kind of continuous improvement, right? You're always trying to get better, always trying to do what you can and eliminate waste wherever you can. And waste is anything that's not helping you to deliver that value that you've identified. So thinking about this in a marketing context, you got to know your industry. You have to understand what is value. And maybe you would crowdfund ideas and money and other things instead of assuming you're going to get it from within. You need to minimize how much time you spend planning and projecting and doing all that kind of thing Beta test instead. Don't assume you've got it the first time. Adapt as you go, and focus on inbound marketing. And this is a definition of it that I like, that it's earning the customer's attention by making it easy to be found and drawing customers to your website. And typically the sermon is that you do this by providing interesting content in a blog or in other forums you're participating in or anything, and to be constantly evaluating. And I think this is from the book Lean Marketing. Their principles are nail it, then scale it, rapid hypothesis testing, right? That's what I'm calling beta testing. Minimum viable product, don't provide anything that isn't actually adding value. Have metrics, reiteration, and agile development. In other words, keep looking at the way you're measuring it and see if you need to adjust that. Learn fast, don't fail fast. Although there's a wonderful little book that was written by an engineering professor called How to Fail Successfully. And basically he says, do it quickly, right? Figure it out right away. This isn't working. I'm going to move on. And why not, and et cetera. So I don't know that I completely endorse the last one. Whoops. Another kind of truism of marketing that's post the traditional approach to a marketing plan is that what you're seeking is continuous engagement, not a campaign, right? A marketing plan usually assumes you're going to have a marketing campaign. You're going to have advertising, and you're going to have some events, and you might have any other kind of things like that that are very much on a timeline. Whereas many businesses, and this is not true of every single one, but true of many, many businesses now, what you want is to create a kind of cohort, a community around what you're doing. Certainly OfficeXPats is one of the very stellar examples of this kind of thing. But it's also true, and I have many clients that have little specialty stores or specialty services, and it doesn't matter what you look into, whether it's yarn, beads, quilting, massage, you name it, or psychiatry for that matter, you're trying to create kind of a group that's interested in it and that's going to be a repeat customer. So, and the websites that I've looked at, and I actually have a client who has a website that sells things you can buy anywhere. And how she's making money, I mean, I'm totally mystified, except she is making money. And when I said, well, how do you choose? She's just reselling things, basically. So everything's drop shipped. When she gets an order, she sends it to the manufacturer, and the manufacturer sends the product to the customer, right? She says, well, I just saw that. I knew someone would want to buy that. And she's right. I mean, she just knows her market, right? So that is kind of but she's constantly Facebooking, constantly blogging, constantly just sending out the latest little bit of information about the people who are interested in the kind of products she sells. So that valued content is the key. And in addition, although this is everything over the web and everything's kind of remote in a way, it also gives you the opportunity that if they're buying, they can call you directly, they can talk to you directly, they get a very engaged, personal, what's called a high-touch experience. So what are some action steps you might take in terms of creating a plan in this kind of environment? And here's the things that occurred to me. You can create your own department by putting together a group of people who you think understand your market and asking them, what do you think? Once on a Southwest airline flight, I was handed a card with 3 names for a Greek restaurant, for example. This person went to this is in the good old days when Southwest was more sociable than it is now. you were supposed to check which of those names you thought was best for a Greek restaurant. And this woman had immediately, 150 sample response from people who she thought were basically her target market, which was not bad, because then there's flights. It used to be that flights just went certain places and you saw the same people and kind of knew who was with you. Also, there are so many professional tools available now that you don't have to buy it necessarily, you just have to look for it. I like putting up a timeline, creating your own test marketing, partnering with a related business that you're not actually competing with, but maybe you have the same target market. So you're trying to get to the same people, and then trying to keep track of what is worth it. So web analytics, a dashboard that Leslie talked about earlier of creating of what you want to actually track would be important. I've got an alternative version of this, actually, I want to show you in a minute. But here's my example. I decided to choose an example as a kind of business that we can create as a hypothetical is a roller skating or tour business, right? So it's seasonal. It has a definite kind of market. And this person who actually inspired this idea of taking this approach is someone who has a part-time business. He has another business going on. This is a part-time business. It's seasonal. He said, I've been really hit by the recession. I need a few more clients, but I'm not trying to build an empire here. I just want a few more clients. And I've sold off some of my assets because I wanted to scale down this business to something I could do and have my other business be the main focus. So don't do something that a whole bunch of people are going to call me. I just want a few more clients. And because he's got such limited capacity, he can't afford to spend much on it, or he'll be spending more than it can bring in, right? So I've thought with him about what are some things he could do. Well, you could sponsor a meetup group or go to a meetup group, or there's every kind of, you can look on the web, there's every kind of interest, including rollerblading or whatever this is called. I don't know how out of it I am. There's a ton of things you can do. So he could go to roller derby, right? Email roller derby groups and say, why don't you have your group come and do a tour with my business. And there are many equivalents to this, by the way. Every interest has clubs that take field trips. And so now that I'm in Port Townsend, where there's not enough people to support many of the kinds of businesses there are, that's one of the things we're doing. How can you get a club to come to you? Because there just isn't enough buyers there. You've got to get people from the outside to come. Another thing is he could go to a store that sells the equipment and see if he could put their flyer in his place of business and put his flyer in theirs. So they're in buying their skates or their equipment, and they're saying, oh, I could go take a tour, or my group could go take a tour of some beautiful place on the Olympic Peninsula. This is the roller skating horse. The idea here is think about something that maybe isn't currently related to that, but would be a fun, interesting variation for somebody who's totally into horses doing things. Well, you could say, how about having them come and roller skate? And here's another one that the Kitsap Visitors and Convention Bureau has been very good at promoting, and that is create a package. So you're going to come and rollerblade, and it's a package. I've already set up where you can stay at a B&B. You're going to have a coupon to go to a good restaurant. It might include, you might roller skate to a winery for a wine tasting. Each one of those is a separate business. But, yeah, right. Well, you have to use your imagination a little bit. Maybe a juice place. Anyway, the idea is that if you have one of these tiny businesses, you can pull together a group of tiny businesses that create something more attractive than you can get yourself, or that get somebody there more than if they have to figure out, well, so we could go do this, and maybe they even find you as saying, we're going to take a rollerblading tour. So where will we stay? Where will we? My experience is every wife knows how much time this takes to do all the planning, putting together all the pieces, etc. You could do that and increase your business that way. So these are just some ideas to think about, kind of. I don't mean this to be comprehensive at all. And so now I want your examples and experience, but I had something, I ran into Ken Sethny on the way here. He has what he calls his bullet point marketing plan, and I wanted to show you this as an example. So he's saying you can put together a marketing plan just by asking yourself these 5 questions. What does your best prospect look like? Where are they? How are you going to get to them? How much do you have to spend to do that? And how are you going to decide that you've succeeded or not? So this is another way to walk yourself through a very quick process that gets right to the point, that assumes you already know the market, which, as I say, in theory, you can always study more about it. But in practice, typically you've gone into an X business because you've already got some experience in it. And there's just a certain amount of research that you can afford to do. And interacting with your clients is the best research, is the other point, I think, to this whole approach. Nothing, you know, there's a saying that no business plan survives encounter with the marketplace. And I feel like the same is true of a marketing plan to a certain extent. And the whole business plan is going through this same kind of evolution of now people saying, don't do a business plan, you know, because you're wasting a lot of time. And once you get there, things will be different than you think anyway, which I have mixed feelings about that, having seen people with no plan launch themselves. And so I think there's a place for planning, but the kind of comprehensive beat it to death approach that I see the American Marketing Association approach being it's both not practical and it really has limited value outside the context that it was designed for. So who else would like to tell how they have done their own marketing plan? Or just things that have been helpful. Bill, you've seen a lot, I'm sure.
Well, I think after going through all of that, meeting with the marketing associations, really what it really boils down to is stepping back, looking, seeing what's in the marketplace, and then getting a perception of what that is. And look at it differently. This ties right into thinking. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden you start to see, oh, the customers have changed. The product distribution is different. The pricing is different. Right. And then as you see all that, then you ask the question, how can we address that situation?
Great.
And it forms a whole creative approach to the market.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this works in all businesses.
Yeah. Karen, did you have
We were trying to raise money, so I entered into a competition that was a marketing plan competition. Okay. And you had to submit a 5-page marketing plan. So I went through all the different areas, the forecast, what is your business, what is your competition, and all. And the good news, one, it forced me to do it all, and I think it was useful too, because you have to be able to talk about your business to someone else. Yeah. And if you don't have it written down, it's sometimes hard. It's easy to talk in general. Yeah. The other thing for me that was helpful is I got feedback. I could reject some of it or not, and while we were at semifinals, we didn't win. It gave us information, and it also, you see people's biases. Mm-hmm. And you have a certain way you see your business, but it helps you get feedback of the way other people see it.
Yeah, very good. Yes.
I essentially did that. That's what I did, but I called it guerrilla marketing.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, and so I have, and I have an Intuit IT and accounting support company. And so I'm going, where do I find these people? There's businesses all over the place. So I targeted the CPAs of Bainbridge and got about 5 of them to partner with me. And that's how I got my first clients.
Great.
That's how I did that, because that's where the people were. But that's a really good system, and you have to keep it very lean because you just don't have time to do that.
What else is she doing? She's making the CPAs do the marketing for her, right?
I went in there under
They
the
have to go out and
guise
get the clients, then they say, oh, by the way, you need to call her, okay? So that's great. That is a great way to have a pipeline.
Yeah, and that works very well.
And it doesn't depend on any one CPA, right? There's a lot of advantages to this kind of approach.
I think one of the other key things is once you identify, or if you have customers, visit them. Don't just go on business calls. Have lunch, have coffee, talk, play golf or whatever. And all of a sudden you will start to get input on the characteristics and the concerns of their business and market that you never even heard of.
Yeah, typically as you're addressing a pain, right? With your business. So you have to figure out what pain is big enough for somebody to pay to solve it. And that's where, that kind of interaction that Bill was talking about is exactly where you hear those things.
Another thing we did was we wanted to address a pain. So as cheaply as we could, we made a brochure, and then we actually went and we were trying to see, okay, take a small market. So we took Bainbridge Island and we put it in every grocery store, every place, well actually in Kitsap County, we went all over and put our brochure somewhere and to see if anyone called or the reaction, focusing on one really big thing. And did it cheaply. I mean, we made our own little brochure, printed it out, and tested it.
How did it work?
It was very disappointing to us, but that told us a lot. That,
exactly. Drop it. If it's not working, drop it.
But we didn't invest a lot of money because somebody had offered to do it for us for $50,000, and we did it for $200. So,
That's a big
that was a national campaign, but the thing is that, I mean, the experience is the same. It's that I wanted to see, does this work? Do I think it doesn't work? Not necessarily, but I looked on Bainbridge to say, are people responding? And if they're not, then there's a problem with it.
Exactly, and you can even say, well, is it Bainbridge, or how are these other people different? Well, maybe not in the context you're talking of, you know what I mean, in the context of your service or product.
Now, one thing I used, which I didn't think was going to work when I first opened my company, I put in a little ad in the Islander just to brand, because it's, a sleeper town, just to brand myself. And I got 2 calls the first week. And for like a year and a half, 2 years, I was getting 1 to 3 calls every week. It was just amazing.
This is so interesting. You know who's buying small town papers? Anybody read about this? Warren Buffett. And, as business advisors, and most of us are not in places as remote as Fort Townsend, we say, oh, don't waste your money on newspapers, nobody reads the newspaper. And if you look at the national statistics, nobody reads the newspaper. But you know what papers get read? Local. And in Fort Townsend, it's amazing. I'm right next to the Rose Theater, which is an independent, beautiful little theater. And I thought, on my way home one night a week, I ought to stop in. So I'll get their list of what movies are coming up. And I called them and they said, well, our list is in the paper. We don't put out a list. Okay, they know people are reading the paper. So it depends on your context. To advertise in the Seattle Times, if you're a tiny business, I doubt it's worth it, right? It's expensive and it's too generic a readership. But to go to these local papers, it's amazing. It's typically pretty cheap, and in most small towns, they are being read. People are reading them, every word from every page, from first to the very end, to the weather. So interesting point to bring up. I think that is something that kind of goes against the conventional wisdom.
And everything you're saying is totally hitting home with me now, just because I am one of those people who I don't read regular papers. Like to get the news, I'm online or, you know, NPR or whatever. But every time that free Islander comes in my mailbox, I sit there and I read it. And I do read the articles in there. And it's because it is so about my specific community.
And there's no other source for that information.
I mean, there are a couple online, and there are websites online that I follow that are also about our community, but there's something about getting that in my mailbox. I don't want to just toss it out, you know, because who knows, there might be something about somebody I know, or a friend, or a colleague, or whatever.
And it's free.
And it's free, exactly.
Yeah, but anyway, I thought this was very interesting because you can imagine the news media, you know, when Warren Buffett started buying up these groups of local papers, were just like, you know, wait a minute, we're all losing our jobs, you know, what do you know, we don't. And I think he's really cued into something that I see, you know, in the little community that I live in.
So I was just told I needed to mention another thing that I did, which was my car sign. I have a minivan, and that I was working downtown at one of my clients, and I just had it parked on the street. I had people somebody took a picture of it and they called me 6 months later, and then other people called me, I saw your car, and I said, well, I'm just going to park downtown.
And there are people who do that.
Really?
Who literally have like an old junker car and they find someplace they can leave it next to the highway or whatever. There's somebody between, I go back and forth, I have a satellite office in Port Angeles, and there is somebody who has their handyman sign. It's always, you know, and it's just a magnet on the door of the van, right? And I think that van has no motor in it, you know, it's just sitting there. But just plain visibility. You know, the people who were originally told to do that kind of thing were lawn care, construction, right? People who, how can I say this? You need them, and all of a sudden you need them, kind of. You know what I mean? It's so great point. Something as simple as a magnetic sign.
And I change it up every 4 to 6 months.
Oh, okay. So wow, that's the advanced class.
People get used to seeing it.
The other thing about a magnetic sign is that if you have a partner or somebody who you would like to promote but are not good at promoting, just having that sign there, that can do that without talking.
Yeah.
When I was running for office, seriously, my partner, he wouldn't do anything about my business, but he goes to homes all over this island, so I bought him a really nice sign, and then everyone said, oh, how do you know her?
Yeah, there you go. So. There you go. Somebody else. What is your business like, sir?
Me? Mm-hmm. Oh, well, it's Horizon Home Inventory. I do a photographic record of the assets in your home or business.
Okay, wonderful.
And I've just launched, so
okay.
I'm in the beginning stages.
What do you think is working? What do you think isn't working?
Well, I'm trying a little bit of everything right now, but right now I'm working with the ad department in the Burlington Sun as far as the weekly is concerned.
Okay.
So I'm doing kind of a test market, if you will. Branding per se.
Okay.
And I'm massaging the ad each week. So
it's really helpful to have some kind of code to be asking anytime anybody calls you or comes to you, where did you find out, right? You need to always be trying to find as much out about that as you can. Which is why the sophisticated web analytics can be really neat. They tell you quite a bit, actually, if you really look at them, in terms of, are people looking and saying, meh, or are they spending some time and then saying, or are they, you know, what's your conversion rate and all that kind of thing. I'm sure somebody else is going to give you a better review of that than I can. But interesting. And it is, try it, and if it works, do it again, kind of thing, you know what I mean? That's but just immediately get in contact with the customer and Bill, I think that's what you were saying too, is don't think you're going to think about it and come up with something cool. Just ask, is this of interest to you or not? Yeah. Or what's bugging you? What's the hardest thing about maintaining your finances, knowing how you're doing? Believe me, I do want your card. My number one advice that I'm giving to about 80% of the people who come in is, do you have a bookkeeper? You know, do you have actually a good system set up for tracking.
You know, you can learn a lot from people that are not the president of the company or whatever.
Exactly.
I had one business, I was a general manager, and I had our truck driver would come in to my office.
Very good. That's a great point.
And like we were playing chess, we had a chess. But what he was telling me was every place he delivered, he would tell me what other products were there, what the warehouse people were complaining about. And I was writing this all down about the competition.
Because what's he seeing? The pain. Right?
Yeah, he's getting the pain, the troubles, and all of that nobody would get just talking to the owner or maybe others.
Exactly.
So look in different places.
Yeah, you don't have, you're so right that sometimes the president, he's got the party line that he's got to say, right? No matter what. But if you ask the secretary, she's like, I don't know what they're doing around here, you know. So you don't get the same technical language, but you get the message. I think better sometimes. Who else has a business that they're, Alice, I don't know whether to bug you or not.
I don't really have anything started yet.
Okay.
I haven't started it at all yet. I want to talk to somebody before I put my toe in the floor.
Okay. Planner, how about you?
I'm a member of Accelerated Kids App, so Ken had shared that with us a few months ago, and we all did that and shared it together, and it was very helpful to have that. One of the things that some of us were looking at was what is our Class A, and so we'd have 2 or 3 different ideas, and we're still kind of testing that out to figure out who that is.
Very good. This is another part of what your beta testing is doing, right? Am I even targeting the right person?
Yeah.
Or is it somebody else who really needs that service?
But you can have a couple of different levels of clients of type ABC.
Right.
And that was the other thing too, was okay, because I came up with 3 different things and said, who do I need, who's my main one, who's the next one? And then looking at all of those, and all of my, when you sign a contract with me, it says who referred you, because I want to see how they're getting to me.
Very good. All good. Nothing wrong with the ABC, but typically, Peter Drucker has a wonderful saying, as among many, that is, effective executives do first things first, and second things not at all, because there's never time. And I think there's something to that, you know. If you look and say, wait a minute, I'm really spending most of my time on my B and C, for whatever reason, you know, maybe you really haven't figured out how to get to A. Well, your time is better spent figuring out how to get to A than spending all your time not on A if you're sure that's who is A. Yeah. So how about you?
Well, no, I was just going to say that made me think, like, I'm a graphic designer. I've been doing that for a long time, but what I'm actually just sort of kind of shifting my focus to a little bit is mural painting and color consulting for homes and businesses. So
wonderful.
My clientele is very, very different, and my marketing for my design I've hardly ever really had to do, because it's always been kind of word of mouth or past colleagues, and not a local clientele. So now I'm in starting something up where I have a local clientele. And what you just mentioned about figuring out who your clients are. So for me, for example, I could look at it a couple different ways. I'm trying to figure out, should I be talking to homeowners and consumers, or should I be talking to painters and interior designers? You know,
or architects. Very good.
So all of that is kind of swimming around in my mind, and that would definitely affect how I market.
Absolutely.
You know, whether I put an ad in the Islander.
So are you trying to create a pipeline like she did? I'm going to go to the CPAs, right? I'm going to go to the decorators.
Right.
And have them be feeding me people. Yeah. Or do I need to be talking to the homeowners or the lumber yard? Or both. Yeah.
But again, with the limited time that we have in our lives, you know, it's like you just said about, do you want to do A, B, and C, or do you really just say, this is where I'm going, and those will come along for the ride.
The other thing I like about this is where I'm going, if it doesn't work, you find out darn fast. And you need to find out fast, instead of always kind of having, well, I need to be spending time on this, you know. But great example. totally different market, right? Totally different approach, totally different plan needed, totally, same skill,
Right.
in theory, but that's the only thing that's the same about it.
Yeah.
Different payment method, different, more one-time versus ongoing, more,
And I will say that, I finally did my first official little push of marketing today, and I just posted a post in Island Moms because it's free and it's there.
Okay.
And it's going out to everybody, and, hey, there's something I can just see if anybody responds to that at all.
Very good.
So.
The other thing I want to mention about that, it's really good to have just like a little logbook or something where you can keep track of what the response is, because typically you just don't remember accurately, or it's just not top of mind. And when you go back and say, golly, how many people did I get from that? Some may be more memorable than others. There's a lot of things that can kind of skew your memory. So even if you can just flip back and say, oh, that's right, I got 2 calls that day, and then the day, or just like here, I get about 2 a week, right? You can go back and say, oh, actually, because it may not, I know some things I do them, and it's so automatic, it's like it doesn't even register hardly, how many follow-up emails have I sent, or, you know what I mean? But if I keep track of it, realize, wait a minute, that's really paying off, or I'm just pestering people, I need to leave them alone. Okay, how about you?
Well, I started a business doing something not because I thought I was going to make a lot of money, but because I thought the world needed it.
Okay.
And that may have been a really bad decision.
Oh, yeah. Turned out the world did not need it very badly?
Well, I think it does need it, but
yeah.
Mainly what I do is I produce educational films about what's underwater.
Oh, wonderful.
And
okay, wonderful.
Here locally.
I'm a former CH2 Millipede. I'm a total water nut. Okay.
So I tried a number of things. I tried selling DVDs, and the market was just way too small to bring in enough money to make that work. I tried producing TV series that reached millions of homes, but it was on either public access stations or PBS, and there wasn't really any money there.
Yeah,
Schools don't really have much money.
Budget, okay.
So I'm finally beginning to realize that maybe my market is the funding agencies, through grants and things like that. That's where a lot of my money has been coming from. It's from grants. So now I've got to readjust my thinking to think that that's my market.
Somebody else give him some advice. Who should he be talking to?
Schools, private schools.
Okay, there's one. What else?
To the foundation.
A shrink?
Yeah, right.
Foundations who fund the nonprofits.
The foundations who fund the nonprofits.
The companies that sell underwater equipment.
Yes. Companies that sell underwater equipment, very good. It could be a loop running at the pools at the dive store or whatever, right?
It's a local college.
Local community college. Anyway, you just have to keep pushing. When you start with a product instead of starting with a pain to solve. And I think I've told Karen this, my mom went back to school to become a clinical psychologist when I was in high school, so I was her lab tech. And did all the little experiments, watched all the videos, and took notes and everything. And the one that has left a lasting impression on me was on B.F. Skinner and, positive reinforcement. And it's a cage that has little buttons in it, and they release these pigeons into the cage, and the buttons are flashing on and off, and they're different colors, and they kind of peck here and peck there, but if they peck one when it turns on a certain color, they get a peanut. Well, they're just kind of pecking at random, and then somebody gets a peanut, and everybody else says, hey, there's a peanut over there. And then once they figure out that it's every time you peck the red button, they're just peck, 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 peck. Pretty soon they have a heap of peanuts, more than they can eat. All there. But what are they doing? They're trying things, they're beta testing, and when they find what works, they just keep doing it. They don't get bored, they don't get distracted, they're going to keep pecking the red button. And especially intelligent, active people get bored. And this is a problem I have seen in my past businesses and that I see in this business. once something's working, keep doing it. Many years ago, I worked, I was starting my own business. I was very worried I wasn't going to have enough clients. So I took a job teaching how to take the SAT at night. And I'm like, if I could live from taking standardized tests, I would be a wealthy woman. I tell you, I know how I'm just good at taking standardized tests. So anyway, I was teaching this, and the guy who had devised this program, it was so neat. You could take as many tests as you want, and he had everything set up, and he'd been doing it long enough that he kind of refined his textbook and figured out who makes a good teacher, you know, what kind of person to hire to teach these classes. And he was just getting it. And I said, you know, you ought to franchise this. This is a terrific idea. You've got everything set up. You've got all the procedures defined. And he said, oh, I'm tired of that. Now I'm going to do, you know, some other totally, you know, now I'm going to make videos for school, you know. I was like, no, this is crazy. You've been spending, you know, you haven't been making anything on this so far because you're spending it all on development. Don't stop now. You know what I mean? But I tell you, all of us can be prone to this of saying, oh, but I've designed 1,000 websites. I don't care if I ever see another one, right? So not to pick on you, but.
And that's actually one thing I don't design is websites.
Yeah.
But,
okay.
Yes, but I am guilty of that, I'm ready for the next.
Yeah,
cool
I know how to do that. That's not interesting anymore, right? So that's the other thing too. And not that you don't have to constantly be reevaluated, but your CPA example is really an excellent thought process. She's found a pipeline that works. And maybe her business is going to grow and maybe she's going to go see more CPAs. But there may come a time when those CPAs no longer are as good a pipeline. You've got to recognize that right away and start trying other things. And having one pipeline is almost never a good idea. So sometimes it's, you have a main pipeline, and then and I'm going to use your interior decorators versus home people or the lumber yard, or I mean, I don't know who else might be.
Painters.
Painters, okay,
painters.
House painters. I would always have a plan B, I guess. But when you find that mind, don't neglect it. You know, be sure you're doing everything you can to make sure it remains a good pipeline. Either their needs may be shifting.
It was a good jump start, but I'm in my 3rd year of business, and I definitely don't use them as a sole means for my clients at all, but they got me started.
Absolutely. No, I think it's a terrific idea. Right? Let somebody else do the marketing work. It's so expensive. No. Which is kind of her foundation idea for your, right? Find somebody whose mission in life is to improve. And actually, I have, now that I've moved, you know, Hood Canal is one of the best places in the world for shellfish. And yet, people hardly even think about it or know about it. The businesses that are there that are really going gangbusters are selling everything to Asia. But that's crazy. Do you know what I mean? There ought to also be a great local market. It's an ecotourism thing. I mean, there's a million things. It's fascinating, and it's all dependent on water quality, which there are many water quality fanatics in the area. Get them tuned into that. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of finding that community of support. So anyway, but looking for who else cares about what's underwater. And you're not going to make them interested. This is the other very hard and painful lesson. They're not going to get interested because you have a wonderful video. I don't have any doubt you do have a wonderful video. But they've got 1,000 demands on them. So you want to go to somebody who's already interested.
Maybe the people who want to sell the equipment that people use to go on would use your videos to entice people to want to buy their equipment.
Wow. We should have coffee.
She's looking for a marketing job.
You could talk to all those realty ladies that we see in the Islander. Their job is to sell homes. Homes might sell better if they had some of your graphic designs in them.
And well, and actually, I just met with a realtor the other night at a chamber event where she was the one who came up with the idea of, when I told her what I did because she asked, and she was the one who came up with the idea of, sometimes we get these homes that are put up for sale that the homeowners can't really afford to invest in repainting it and making it great, but maybe if we could show them what it could be. And so she was the one who approached me about kind of doing a virtual makeover to present in the home. So yes, realtors is another great example of, and I hadn't even thought of that. Interesting. So yeah. We haven't heard from you.
Oh, I'm just soaking it in. Great. Oh, what am I supposed to say? Is it time to go?
Okay, well,
don't let her off that
You can stay.
What?
You can stay.
No, we're out of time, right?
Take your 30 seconds.
Yeah. What am I supposed to say?
Just what have you found that works or doesn't work?
Word of mouth.
How do you make it happen?
I meet a lot of people. I volunteer a lot. I do a lot of things.
Volunteering.
I know a lot of weird stuff, and people come to me if they have an issue or something, and I'm happy to help. And it usually has nothing to do with what I actually make money from. So it's all good.
I would like you all, let's take this, each of you should have a sheet like this. I want one good idea and one bad idea from each of you at the top, right? I also want to weed out things that don't work. And then I'm going to ask you to do just a quick evaluation. What was the best thing about this session and what should I do differently next time? So just...
Who needs another one?
And I just want to say that it's been really fun in the back there. We've got
streaming.
That we're streaming, so it's not completely glitch free. It's cutting in and out a little bit, but
yay! So you've been watching the stream on your phone?
Yes.
Wow.
Cool. Yes. I mean, this is so cool. This is just amazing. And Robert's back there kind of producing on the fly, so he can make a little inset of the speaker with a big picture of the slides. And so, that's some software that we're going to be working to fund in a crowdfunding thing.
Cool.
So let's officially end it, and then everybody here is welcome to please give Elaine your paperwork with the feedback. She needs that to justify her time here, and we appreciate her time here. So thank you very, very much.
My pleasure. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. My pleasure. It forced me to think through this. And my little guy, my little rollerblading guy, I cannot tell you, he was like, don't have too many people call me. I was like, wait a minute.
Not usually when you hear somebody say.
Yeah, usually it's I need clients, So anyway, but really great exercise.
And I would like to get the PowerPoint. I think you could post that on the page. Would everybody like to be able to come back and see that again?
Yeah, as I say, I just kind of developed, I mean, this has been forcing me to think through this actually, which has been great. Because I do think, we're constantly saying, you need a business plan, you need a business plan, you need a marketing plan, you need, and people are just
planning.
Yes, and you do need to plan, but mostly you need to do and hook it into some outline. That, you know what I mean? It's more I went to the chamber or I went and played golf with somebody and they told me what's really bugging them is this,
And one thing I could say here too is I did a little bit of planning over the weekend. I came up with a small little marketing plan for this room, for the goals being to come up with just to really get additional income from renting this space.
Great.
And one of the things I realized as I was doing the plan is that one of the goals is to make the most of being here in the pavilion. So in my marketing plan, I'm putting in a budget for some new banners, and both for here and for inside, and coming up with an idea with help from Sylvia Carlton of redoing the entryway here. Just when the approach as you come up the stairs to kind of draw people in and have places for sort of more self-advertising and whatnot on that. Approach. And anyway, it was really fun to realize that, as there's a place for spending money on advertising, but there's also a place for realizing an asset that you already have that you might not be making maximum use of.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you so much,
My
Elaine.
pleasure, thank you.